Issue 15, Big Game. I wish the art looked like it did before, where it was just like the show. I guess the good artist was sick, but then they should have waited until he was ready. Anyways, Jerry says to Rick and Morty that he needs the TV to watch football, and Rick asserts that it's still supposed to be his TV. He says he wants to watch his team, and Rick says he should have more important things to worry about, and that sports are just the same ugly cycle of people separating the strong from the weak. Jerry also has a good point that sports are about the elevation of the human spirit through competition, though people do cheat. Rick doesn't believe him, thinking it's idealistic I guess, and Jerry says that if he's got a better example, he'd like to see it. Rick jumps at the chance and uses his spaceship to take Jerry and Morty to a casino, rather than dropping Jerry off at the Jerry daycare, because I guess he's fully confident that this alien casino is safe. Maybe this was before the Jerry daycare was established. Maybe this isn't our Rick. Rick says that this is just the betting area and warns Jerry not to insult the sport because people have a real personal stake in what goes down on that field, naturally because they're betting on it. And they go to a stadium, and Rick tells Morty to keep his lucky hat on because they're having a special moment. Rick says that he didn't say the sport was a perfect game. He meant that it was a better example of the true nature of sport. And because it's Rick and Morty, unfortunately the sport just has to be a gory gladiator fight. Surprisingly, Jerry's the moral one for once, calling it out as crazy. This makes sense because he's normally a normal dude. Rick says it's a sport because there's winners and losers, an obvious objective. And Jerry says that the fans are gambling on their kids' lives. I guess because they hate their kids. At least Rick admits that it does bother him, but says that it's not that different from any other pursuit in life. You prepare your kids and hope they survive the world. And these people just do it in a closed area with hot dogs and beer. Really thin justification there, that really didn't work. Jerry ends up pissing off the sports fans, but at least the twist is that he did so because he had more of a conscience than them. But it's annoying that the alien beside Rick actually asks what Jerry's problem is, when he clearly spelled out that it's just carnage for depraved people, and that should be really easy to understand. I guess this isn't forced of a plot because maybe the sport is illegal, like there's illegal sports in real life, like cockfighting, but it still goes on. Jerry storms off on his own, with Rick and Morty irresponsibly not keeping him supervised on an alien planet where anything could happen to him. He wonders if one of those machines has a phone port so he can check the scores, planning to bet to try and make the best of things. And he presses a button saying oops, and right away it turns out that he made the right bet by accident. And his second bet is also a good one. He keeps getting lucky on the bets, and this attracts the attention of Brinko, who runs some of the attractions at this establishment. He says he wants Jerry to achieve a higher level of success as Rick and the alien continue to tediously take forever saying confusing sports jargon, this time getting into a shouting match together because Rick's irresponsible. This means that Rick ends up saying that even his grandson could easily beat up that alien son. Morty panics and Rick insists that he's got it all figured out, which has to be a lie, but at least he's trying to reassure him. They say it has to be a lie because you think he would have told him what he knows, like, from the start, if he has it all figured out. Like, to brag, if anything. But still, this is so irresponsible. He reasons that Morty's been through worse, and the alien son has little arms and legs, so he can take him. And then he has to find a hole to wait out and let them do all the work. Rick really does think he's always right. Well, it makes sense because he's a genius. Rick then panics when Morty gets dragged away to compete, and Rick panics saying to not worry and it'll all be okay, saying that Grandpa's got this. The fact that he's worried at least tries to prove that he still cares about him. Because if he was a real villain, he would just be smiling. Morty's told it'll be his turn soon by an alien, and some girl who really knows what she's doing insults Rick as Morty tries to defend him. And Rick calls him buddy, saying that he can't get him out and they're not giving him a lot of time. Why doesn't he just use his portal gun, summon a portal where Morty is, and then portal him and Morty back home? Why isn't he thinking with portals? I guess because the referees are right in front of Morty. So what? There would be bars separating them from Morty if Rick portaled to him. He doesn't say that he plans on betting on Morty, and so the money will be worth it. Morty is genre savvy, asking Rick to make him a killer monster, but Rick just gets dragged away and encourages him to do well. I refuse to believe that already Jerry knows what a rune and pleen are. It would have made sense if we had been shown him being told that. So I guess it is believable. And he presses a button by accident when facing away from it and bragging, which causes them to bet on Morty. Maybe it would have been a bit more heartwarming if he did bet on him on purpose, because he's having faith in his son. You know, after he gets over the shock of, oh no, Morty's in the game. Well, I better show faith in him at least. And it's implied he'll get in trouble if his bet loses. Even though he shouldn't get blamed for being unlucky. Idiot. Morty makes a long motivational speech out of desperation that they're going to win because they have each other and Rick's smart. And because it's a dark comedy, things don't go so well. And Jerry tells Rick in a panic that he's been making bets for a group of businessmen, and he generously begs Rick to shoot Morty full of space steroids. Fortunately, he is in character, as it turns out he already tried. He has a syringe full of the most powerful sports mutagen in the galaxy in his jacket, but they wouldn't let him near Morty. Again, why doesn't he just portal to Morty? Because to be seen. And they might go to Earth and come after him if he warps Morty home, but why would they know where he lives? There's no way Earth is the only planet in the entirety of existence with humans in it. But it was at least a pleasant surprise that the writer thought to have Rick try to help Morty the way he wanted. So it comes off more as the writer thought of that, but realized to be too predictable in a formulaic already series. Also, I guess the reason Rick doesn't just kill the gangster threatening Jerry is because he's from such a powerful gangster group that would notice his disappearance, and would naturally assume that Rick did it to protect Jerry. So if Rick did simply vaporize him, he'd get the entire group of gangsters coming to Earth for revenge. And while he could deal with them personally if they're right in front of him, they might hurt or kill some of his loved ones along the way. Like, before he'd get a chance to kill all of them. He should say that. Then Jerry's scared when Rick gets told what's really going on, and he says that if things don't go his way, Jerry's all his. And he calls him an innocent bystander here to root for his grandson. Stupid, stupid noodle limbs. No, art speaks for itself. Focus on the story. Anyways, Morty runs away from the alien son he was expected to fight, and the girl tells him where to go hide with the others. Morty makes an encouraging speech to them all, saying that he survived the most unlikely odds. His grandfather has left him on the edge of solar systems, and inside an alien minefield where the mines were babies that exploded when they laughed. So at least Morty's smart enough to lampshade that Rick's abusive at times. He tries to motivate them all by saying they should survive just to spite their awful parents. Of course, because it's a dark comedy instead of a kids series, there's a subversion and only Morty survives. He gets threatened, and Morty gets so desperate to win that he does a great job of fighting back. And surprisingly, even Rick looks away while Jerry is horrified. It's good to make the main character sympathetic for even occasional moments like this. It really helped Morty that he got a hold of a sword. And the fact that he's shedding tears while fighting helps reaffirm that he's still the good person we know and is unhappy about having to fight for his life. Why would a gangster leader be squeamish at this? He naturally won because his first punch caught the bad guys by surprise when they thought he was just a wimp. The gangster leader is ecstatic and says that all his winnings will buy planets. And Jerry quickly wants to go instead of collecting his winnings. Then all of a sudden, the referees decide to detain Brinko and his entire group, and Jerry, for alleged gaming fraud, cheating, and coercion. Why Jerry? He's clearly just being threatened and was doing nothing but betting like everyone else. We cut to Rick, Jerry, and Morty flying away in the spaceship, and Jerry complains about not having any hands, and says that Rick turned him in. Rick says that he did him a favor because Brinko is going to do something much worse to him once his lucky streak ended. He says that he should stay out of the sector for a couple centuries. I guess he's intentionally exaggerating, and Brinko didn't look too happy seeing him stroll out of there. Jerry scoffs at Rick saying stroll, implying it really wasn't that easy, as I wonder if Brinko is part of a species of people that live for centuries, since humans certainly don't. Then Rick reveals that he did in fact get some winnings. Somehow everyone got angry at him because he made money. Rick says that the difference between himself and Jerry is planning. He makes his own luck. He tells Morty he was never in any danger, which helps kinda make up for how dark the story was. The lucky hat, which I was wondering about since it was out of character for Rick to be superstitious like that and sentimental, and I thought it was just a joke. was actually a chrono de-randomizer that scans all possible outcomes of a situation and sends a transmission down his nervous system that directs all of his subsequent actions. And the fact that it was referenced earlier in the story means there's a rewatch bonus because you learned that it was actually foreshadowing to this. So that's why Morty survived. He didn't need that. I think it made perfect sense that he survived by just getting a punch off and surprising everyone. In Ready Player Morty, he did the same thing. But it does make sense that Rick can make this if he was able to make a device in issue 1 that made sure that the only possibility that would happen in the future when it comes to the stock market is the one where Rick's stocks go up. It would have actually made more sense if the writer went with a simpler explanation, and the hat made Morty way stronger, and not in a way that was visually obvious enough to be called cheating by the referees. Rick then reveals that he's going to drop Jerry off at a free clinic to get his limbs regrown. I love that it's free. And then he'll get some ice cream for him and Morty. That was sweet of him. It would have been real evil of him to not do that and keep Jerry that way forever. Sadly, there was a subversion, as after Rick admits that he would have never made it through all of his adventures without Morty, and he'd never gamble on that. After Morty thinks it's sweet and asks if he means it, he says no. But Morty's still smiling as he throws some stacks of money at him, so maybe Morty knows that Rick is the type to lie after showing a soft side by this point. He just took a joke as an easy excuse to be nice to him and show his gratitude without being judged. Too bad I'm struggling to think of a time when Morty was necessary for Rick. That would give me another excuse to watch the show, to count all those times. Thank God that story's over. The plot was interesting, with Morty being recklessly bet on as a gladiator by Rick and Jerry, but the enjoyability of the story was severely hampered throughout by the art. The art was just painful to look at. It's so bad, it's like the John Gray art in Archie Sonic of Rick and Morty. But again, art speaks for itself. That's why there's no point talking about it at length. It's a superficial complaint that anyone can see for themselves. I like that Rick at least tried to give Morty an advantage. But we didn't need to be told he had an actually lucky hat. It was believable without it. In retrospect, I really appreciate the beginning of the story, because they could have easily started out with Rick, Morty, and Jerry at the alien planet with no context, with no explanation why they're there. So I'm glad they learned from the Plumpus story.